and Francis and I will start letting people in from the waiting room. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight for our new hospital community meeting, our first one in 2022. If you don't mind, we're gonna sit tight for a minute or so as we wait for other neighbors and community members to join on the call, and then we'll get started here promptly at 6 o'clock. Val, will you go to the next slide? So while we're waiting for people to join, just a brief refresher. I know we've all seen this slide 1,000,001 times and are very familiar with how Zoom works at this point in the pandemic. But as a reminder, we have a lot of presentation materials, so it's helpful to be able to view this, the presentation in full screen. We'll be taking questions throughout the presentation, so we'll have a couple of sections noted where there's going to be a question and answer portion. We'll still use the digital hand feature, so if you can raise your hand down at the bottom of your screen, that would help us facilitate that. If you have any questions that you want to send in the chat, please send them to Frances Flannery and she'll be able to help direct your question to the appropriate individual. No, that's not. You can go to the next slide. That's it there. And so just a reminder, our agenda for today, we're going to have a welcome from Francesca, where she'll talk about some staff changes that Community and Government Relations have seen, some faces that are gone and some faces that have joined our team. And then we'll have an overview of an update on where we're at with the CEQA process from Diane Wong, an overview of the Memorandum of Understanding with the City of San Francisco with Francesca, and then an overview of what our community engagement and project approach has been for the new hospital, and share some exciting opportunities to hopefully engage with the new hospital in real life. Next slide. All right, and so just as a reminder, our standing community meeting agreements, we're here to have a conversation about the new hospital design process. So one person, one microphone, take space and make space for individuals, listen to understand perspective, and no one, just a reminder that no one knows everything, but together that we know a lot. And if you have any suggested agreements or ideas, you can send them to me in the chat or to my email address, which is noted below. The next slide. And so as a reminder, community feedback over the last several months has been incorporated into the design. And so we're going to be sharing some of the renderings with you and where that input has taken us thus far. And then we will be introducing you to Experience Parnassus, which is the in-person opportunity to learn more about UCSF and the new hospital, which will be a nice change of pace from virtual Zoom meetings. Next slide. All right, so here I will hand it over to Francesca Vega, Vice Chancellor of Community and Government Relations, to introduce Ellie Rossiter and talk about the recent changes in CGR.
Thank you, Abby, and good evening, everybody. It's really great to see all of you. Happy belated New Year. I wanted to take a moment to not only announce the departure of Lily Wong, who I think all of you got a chance to know during this process and the community engagement processes that preceded this design focus process. Lily left us at the end of the year and went on to a wonderful opportunity still serving San Francisco. She really was in the trenches and brought together many moving parts that have made the discussions with all of you helpful, successful. So I just wanted to make sure that I acknowledged Lily's efforts, and so you're all aware, we have a new person to our team who's actually leading the community relations effort, and that's Ellie Rossiter, who I'm just thrilled to introduce. Ellie is our new Executive Director of Community Relations and Strategic Partnerships. This is actually a new role for the Community and Government Relations team. Just quickly, Ellie is a fifth generation San Franciscan who came to us by way of the San Francisco Foundation, where she did amazing work focused on coalition building and most recently housing. And has really just kind of hit the ground running, as you can imagine. Ellie, I hate to put you on the spot, but I just want to pass it over to you real quickly, since this is your first community design meeting.
Yeah, thank you so much, Francesca, and good evening, everyone. It's great to see all of you here, and I hope that I get to know you over the next days, weeks, months, and years. Thank you for joining tonight. So as Francesca said, my name is Ellie Rossiter, and I've joined the team. I'm excited to be a part of a great team and part of an amazing organization, UCSF. It's been an incredibly welcoming community to me. I started in the middle of January, and as Francesca mentioned, for the last 10 years, I was at the San Francisco Foundation, and I ran a public-private partnership with the City and County of San Francisco called HOPE SF. And it was an effort to transform 4 public housing communities into mixed income communities. And I worked in that role with a lot of different stakeholders. So government partners, community organization, real estate developers, and many, many more, to really ensure that the City of San Francisco and the community were in lockstep around all of the new construction in their community. Before I was at the San Francisco Foundation, I ran a nonprofit called Parents for Public Schools. And so in that role, I was also really situated in between a large institution and the community that was impacted. And really my whole career has been where I've been in between these large, important, long-term, critical projects for the City of San Francisco and the community that has impacted them. So I am very, very excited to be working with all of you. I also want to mention that I've had the last 6 years working with the UCSF as part of the Council for Community Engagement, which is a council that's made up of half community and half university. And we were tasked with really as the steering committee for the anchor strategies, which you may have heard about, which are really about the institution hiring locally and diversifying its hiring, diversifying and procuring locally, and also investing directly into affordable housing, small business, and social enterprise. Really, really exciting work. And it's just been a really nice transition to go from that role to my new role. And bring all of this holistic engagement to the communities that UCSF serves. So with that, I turn it back to Francesca, I think, and I look forward to meeting with all of you.
Thank you so much, Ellie. As you can imagine, we are thrilled, and I just given what Ellie shared with you, what a perfect fit at a perfect time for UCSF. So again, welcome to Ellie, and I'm sure that there will be plenty of opportunities. We'll all be able to see each other in person, hopefully, and sooner than later. So I will now bring up Diane Wong to present. Thank you again.
Hi, everyone. Diane Wong with UCSF Campus Planning. And I'm here to let everyone know where we are with the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, process for the new hospital. And just as a primer for some of you who may not be familiar with CEQA, CEQA requires an analysis of potential physical environmental impacts. And UCSF determined that an environmental impact report, or EIR, is the level of review needed for the new hospital. Where feasible, mitigation measures were included in the EIR to address any significant environmental impacts identified. And the EIR does not make a recommendation. It's intended as an objective review of potential environmental impacts. Once complete, the final EIR will be presented to the UC regents and will be used to inform their decision-making about the project. Next slide. So the EIR process allows for public review and comment, and there were plenty of opportunities for that in this new hospital EIR. So we had our EIR scoping process in August of last year, in which we heard from you about the environmental topics that you wanted to be included in the EIR. In December of last year, we published a draft EIR for public review, and that had a 60-day public review and comment period. And then just last month, we had a public hearing on the draft environmental impact report. So now we are beginning to review all the comments received, and we'll be working on written responses to all comments in the coming months. Those written responses, together with the draft EIR, constitute the final EIR, which will be provided to the UC regions to consider for certification, and that will be in the spring of this year. And that's it for my brief update. I will pass it back to Francesca.
Thank you, Diane. So now I have the exciting piece of today's program, of this evening's program, to talk a little bit about our MOU with the City of San Francisco. This was an unprecedented agreement with the city that I really couldn't be more proud to share with you where we're at and our successes in this first year. So first, I would like to take a moment just to highlight the specific elements of the MOU, starting with transportation. As you can imagine, and many of you were very much a part of our first two phases of community engagement, transportation was one of the topics that came up again and again. Through the MOU, we're contributing more than $20 million to SFMTA, who we've worked very closely with to think about improvements to transit serving Parnassus Heights. We're committed to partnering with the city to identify a bike route from Golden Gate Park to the campus. And we're collaborating around planning with the city on expanding transit capacity and really looking at pedestrian safety issues. That was an element of transportation that, again, we heard a lot from our community members around pedestrian safety challenges. For the housing piece, we will be doubling our existing housing inventory, adding 1,263 new units citywide. At least 50% of these new units will be added by 2030. By 2050, 40% of our new and existing housing units will be designated for UCSF employee and training households. And I just want to take a moment to emphasize the between 60 and 120% AMI. Again, the AMI was one of the areas where there was a lot of discussion and a lot of input around what that should look like. So again, many of you were a part of those discussions, and we appreciate your feedback. Next slide, please. So other key elements to the MOU: open space. We're maintaining Mount Sutro, the space reserve, at 61 acres while adding additional wayfinding. And we've recommitted to the 2018 Mount Sutro Vegetation Management Plan to ensure long-term health and sustainability. On the workforce piece, 30% local hire goal for project construction jobs. Many of you might be aware of our partnership with CityBuild. And also, in addition to the MOU, our agreement with the building trades around a community workforce agreement. So I share those pieces because workforce has been such a major piece to our commitments, not just through the MOU, but on a larger scale. We're always thinking about how we can up the ante with local hire and continue to be a major partner with the city around economic mobility. expanding construction and administrative workforce development programs in partnership with the Office of Workforce and Economic Development. And again, we worked closely with a team from the city, a diverse group of leaders, and it was, I think we're very much aligned, and there was a shared vision. Education, we're strengthening our partnerships with San Francisco Unified School District to further support STEM curriculum, internship opportunities, and of course, pipeline programming, exposure to career opportunities in healthcare, as well as mental health care professions for underrepresented and minority youth. Next slide, please. So year one accomplishments, we will be providing our first report, sharing our first report for the MOU at the end of March. But just to highlight some of the accomplishments in this first year, we've built 71 units of faculty housing at 2130 Post Street. We're maintaining the Mount Sutro Open Space Reserve, and we funded the Sutro Stewards Health and Nature Program, which of course will provide opportunities for the San Francisco community to take advantage of the beauty of Mount Sutro. Workforce, expanding our Excel program, which is a partnership with Jewish Vocational Services and the city. We're expanding this program to accommodate 45 program participants annually. So much more progress in the next 10 years, but off to a great start. Next slide, please. I just wanted to quickly take a moment to highlight the various departments across the UCSF organization that have been involved in ensuring that our MOU commitments move forward. So this is a snapshot of that. Of course, you see community and government relations, our communications colleagues, but also campus planning, campus life services, transportation and housing, our real estate colleagues, focusing, of course, on housing, facility services. So it's been, as much as it's been a partnership externally, internally, we have gathered a very strong group of colleagues to work on this and ensure that we're moving forward with each element of the MOU. Next slide, please. So again, our final report will be available on March 29th, and we will also be presenting on our first MOU report with the city at the Planning Commission. So more to come on that. Next slide. And I'll pass it, if there's any questions, we can take your questions down before I pass it to Elizabeth Pollock and Stuart Ekblad.
Great. Thank you, Francesca. So as a reminder, we're taking questions by using the raise hand feature, which can be found at the bottom of your screen when you click the reactions button. So if anybody has any questions for our speakers who just presented, please raise your hand now. We'll wait a couple minutes. And also, Francis, if you've gotten any chats, feel free to throw that into the mix as well here too.
Nothing received just yet.
All right, I don't see any hands raised at the moment, and I also don't see anybody frantically waving at me from their Zoom screen either. So I think we're okay to move on. Elizabeth and Stuart, I'll hand it over to you now.
Great, thank you. It's nice to see everyone remotely again. You can go to the next slide, please. A number of these slides I will go through very quickly because they are really just reminders. Many of you, if you've been to any of these meetings, we always like to remind people why it is that we're building a new hospital at Parnassus. And primarily the central reasons are to meet the critical seismic legislation, SB 1953, to increase our capacity to meet the demands that we have for healthcare at UCSF Parnassus, and because of some real patient care issues related to the aging of our facilities. So we continue to experience tremendous demand and cannot accommodate all of the people that want to come to UCSF in order to receive their care. And we really obviously need to upgrade the facilities that were built Moffett was built in 1955. So you can imagine by the time we reach 2030, that building's going to be really, really outdated. Go to the next slide. This is a reminder of where we are in the timeline. We have been meeting with the community throughout visioning and master planning and design in different spurts of meetings. We're in the design phase now. We're sort of midway through. As you can see from this slide, and people have mentioned that we are pursuing Regents approval in the spring. And then we will begin some of the projects that will help make the site ready to build the new hospital, including the demolition of Langley Porter. Just as a reminder, the Langley Porter patients, the outpatients are going to, or in the process really of moving to 2133rd Street in the Dogpatch neighborhood, and the inpatient program will be on the 7th floor of Mount Zion. And then we launch into construction, and it's about 5 to 6 years of construction. And then we transition into the new hospital in order to meet the 2030 seismic deadline, followed by some focused renovations in Moffett and Long. So we're really striving to create the sense of one hospital, not just a brand new hospital, but 3 buildings working together as one hospital. And in order to do that, we need to renovate pieces of Moffett and Long. And now my next slide, I think I'm passing off to Stuart Ekblad.
Great, thank you, and good evening, everyone. So I just want to take a few seconds, actually a minute or two, to just remind people of how we've been thinking about really presenting this information. And if we recall, for example, the whole process of design is really completely an iterative process. So it isn't like we just design the building and then we move into the interiors, and then we move into the actual constructability. But in fact, we do all of these at the same time. But at the same token, we really wanted for people to really start to get a grasp of, when we talk about the building design, we're really thinking about the massing and the aesthetics, the materials that we need to use, certainly sustainability, and really the pedestrian, but really, how does the building aesthetic work? How does it relate to the site? How does it relate to the street? How does it relate to the campus? And so, and I think people can recall, and you will see again tonight, some new images that start to relate to that. And the next thing, though, in terms of, so how do we wanted to talk again, almost separately, but at the same time, public spaces, and how does this building interface with Mount Sutro? So we actually don't really want to think about it so much as a building, but in fact as a place where we use landscape, we use the whole access to the Mount Sutro, the dining, the park to peak, as really parts of our whole healing process. And so I think it was important to really think about, different than the actual design of the building, but how do these spaces start to have an experience that matters to the healthcare? And so we've had some of those conversations already. And again, we want to just remind people that since it's iterative, we will continue to explore those. And then finally, and very importantly, so how do we actually, what happens when we actually go to build this building? Some of the things you've already heard about in terms of building the workforce, but how are we actually going to make this building in a way that, to construct it in a way that that people can understand, and we want to use some time to explain just literally how we're actually going to go about constructing it. How are we going to take that workforce that Francesca talked about and use them in a way that is really productive to construct this building, as well as to be engaging with the community as workforce opportunities. So next slide, please. So again, this was some things that we, for those of you that are on that have, I just remind you of some of the milestones we've gone through. But for example, and it's already 2020, so we're 2 years past that already, where we actually hired the firm of Herzog de Meuron and HDR, which are the lead architects for the project. And then in the early parts of 21, we started to really talk about this whole vision, our inspiration, the healing habitat. And I think hopefully people do recall that we're thinking about this, as I already said, more as a place. more than just a building, but in fact, how does it actually contribute to healthcare, and how does it help the patients and the staff to heal? Then we started to move forward into the actual building design. And when we say that, remember that we're still in the design phase. So even though you see a lot of images that look like it's fully designed, when in fact, there's still a lot of concept work that's still being done. And that's basically around the middle of last year. And now towards the July, we started to talk about those landscape opportunities and how could we use landscape, not just for the site, but within, for example, the podium levels to become part of the building, part of the park to peak. And then towards the latter part of last year, really starting to think about how the streetscape really works in terms of along Parnassus Avenue, and how do we make it actually work and contextual to the rest of the campus. And then finally, the CEQA, which you heard about just earlier. So, I mean, these are just some major milestones that we've had to date and that hopefully you've had a chance to participate in, and certainly are aware of these major milestones. And as we go forward, we'll continue to have new milestones that we'll be happy to present as we move forward. So with that, I'm going to turn over to some design to get some images and move to Carly to present those with HDM, excuse me.
Thanks, Stuart. Hi, everyone. So today we'd like to walk you through some of the current images of the project that have been updated since you last saw them in October of 2021. So just to also start with prefacing that the design is very consistent with what you saw last October. We're continuing to work on these concept images that help you, the community, better understand the project. And simultaneously, we're working on improving the design and making sure that it's as true to our concept as possible. So here you're looking at an elevation of the building. This is a view up from Hillway Avenue, floating above Hillway Avenue, actually. And it's, again, very similar to what you saw last October in 2021. There's been some changes to the streetscape, which we'll speak to momentarily. Next, please. This is a view from the west of the building looking to the east along Parnassus. Again, an updated image from what you saw last October, very similar. Next, please. This is a new image for the community members. So if you remember our meeting last October, we shared a variety of images with you. Many of those images were from far distance views and situated the building in the context of San Francisco. And today we're sharing with you a few images actually from the streetscape, so from the pedestrian experience that let you feel a different sensibility for the building. So what you're seeing here is a view along Parnassus opposite the street. You're standing in front of Moffett looking to the west. And what you can see here is, just a kind of a new planting approach towards the front of the building, and that we're continuously working on the pedestrian experience, trying to make that as welcoming as possible. Next, please. This is an updated view, the same one that you viewed last October. This is an elevation, again, standing on the opposite side of Parnassus Street. And next, please. And this is a view from the sidewalk in front of the building. So here we're looking towards the east, and what you can see here in this image is the sidewalk in front of you with a deep planting separation between you on the sidewalk and the vehicular circulation. That's the main ED drop-off directly on your left, and then the main drop-off behind the trees. So you can also see the articulation of the building front here that's separating those two drop-off zones and also helping to break down the scale of the building along the streetscape. So it's really a pedestrian scaled experience and also a very welcoming environment in terms of material and planting and the rest. Next, actually. Yeah, so here I'm going to pass it off to Francesca. Thanks for flipping there. And I just want to say that those images that you just previewed will be part of what Francesca is about to introduce to us. Thanks, Francesca.
Thank you, Carly. So what we're introducing this evening, and Abby touched on it in her opening remarks, is our Experience Parnassus effort. I couldn't be more excited about this. I think after the last few years of discussion, engagement, taking feedback, and of course, all of the diligent work that we've been doing internally with a massive team, we now are going to be inviting you all to come to Parnassus, specifically our faculty alumni house on Parnassus, to experience the new hospital yourselves. Basically, this is going to be an interactive opportunity throughout the month of March to join us and see firsthand why every element of the design process that you've heard about matters, why every decision, why all the feedback that we've received from you has been so critical to the actual touch and feel and how we serve with this new hospital. So Carly will get into the weeds a bit and share more detail on what this effort is going to look like. But all of you are invited. We look forward to truly opening the doors of UCSF to have all the various constituencies that have been a part of our planning come and get a chance to see and feel again Parnassus and the new hospital. So I'll pass it back to Carly, but I just want to make sure that you all have this registration information, and if you have a chance to take a picture of this of the QR code. Again, we really hope to have a successful event that garners attendance from all of our community members, stakeholders, thought leaders, of course, our elected officials. There's been so much movement with this project, and we're really looking forward to not only you joining us, but also providing feedback on the experience. So I'll pass it back to Carly.
Thanks, Francesca. Next slide, please. Great. So I'll dive more deeply into the content, like Francesca said, just to give you all a preview of what to expect when you come into the space to visit. So the exhibition has two main parts. The first part has a broader view at the Parnassus campus as a whole, and it will focus on the modernization of that part of the Parnassus campus. So you'll have visual materials and interactive content here that will focus on 4 key narratives. The first one is the role that UCSF has played in serving public health emergencies from the 1906 earthquake, which is the image you see at the lower right-hand corner, all the way up to the COVID pandemic today. You'll also learn about how research breakthroughs have led to better patient care, and also how the design team has engaged the UCSF clinicians and staff to bring those breakthroughs into the design of this new hospital today. You'll also learn about the MOU, which Francesca went over before, how UCSF is investing in the city of San Francisco, and as well an introduction into the comprehensive Parnassus Heights plan, which is kind of an overview at the next 10 years at Parnassus and what to expect there. Next, please. And the second part of the exhibition will focus on the concept design of the new hospital itself. So in this portion, you'll find a mix of interactive material and physical material. We're really excited to offer a wide variety of ways to see and experience the new building, all the way from augmented reality to virtual reality to printed material and physical models. So we'll be providing, visuals and plans, a lot of the images that you just previewed, for example, that help you understand the current concept design of the building. We'll have a few physical models in the space, architectural models. One which you see in the lower right-hand corner is a site model. You'll also see some concept design models, which show how the building has changed over time, as well, how the building massing has adapted over this process. You'll also be able to experience some 360-degree views from the Sutro Terrace. And lastly, you'll be able to view digital versions of the building model in space that can help you understand its overall mass, help you walk around it, see how it's connected to Moffitt and Long to form that one united healthcare environment, and also to understand the program of the different floors of the building. So there's going to be lots of material here, and we really hope it's engaging for you as community members and really helpful for you to learn about this building. And let's go next, please. So as I said before, we'll be sharing new views of the building as part of this Experience Parnassus exhibition. This is just a sneak peek at some of those views. And next, please. So again, we just want to really encourage all you community members here and others to come in to visit the Faculty Alumni House. It is on the eastern edge of campus, kitty corner, well, very opposite of the new hospital site itself, at the Faculty Alumni House. And yeah, we just really look forward to seeing you in the space. We hope we can have some fruitful conversations with you and help you engage with this project in a much more personal way. That's all from me.
Carly, can I just jump in here for just
Please.
a quick second?
Yep.
Yeah, just, we're very excited to be able to go back in person in this way. I think one of the comments that we've heard from many people as we've gone through these meetings during the pandemic is that, you know, when will we be able to see and interact in person? And so now the time is here. But wanted to mention that, of course, we are still staying safe with COVID precautions. So the registration is required so that you can get an appointment time, so that we manage the number of people in the building at any one time. Masks will be required as well as proof of vaccination status. So it's our next step towards getting back in person, but wanted everyone to feel safe with the precautions that we were taking during the event.
Great, thank you. Val, will you go to the next slide, please? All right, so that is our presentation for this evening. If folks could go ahead and raise their virtual hand by clicking the reactions button at the bottom of the screen. It might also be under the participants button if you have an older version of Zoom. And Denise, I see your hand is up. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Oh, sorry, I had to unmute myself. Okay, so I've attended several of these webinars and asked the same questions with no results as far as I can tell, unless I missed an update to your plan regarding water conservation, the use of gray water, the collection and use of rainwater, and other ways to minimize our reliance on fresh water. So has anything changed regarding water conservation?
So I could, sorry, I'm having trouble getting back off the video. Hi. So that's really a great question. And has anything changed? A lot is happening in terms of how we're trying to actually address not just your question, but the question about exactly that. When we talk about all of sustainability, but staying specifically to water, we are looking at how we can take the water from the chillers and others and capture that water in a way, the gray water, and use it somehow on the site. And not to, in our ways, for example, at Mission Bay, we're successful in doing that across the site. So we are looking at that. We're not at that total of the final design for that, but in terms of the engineering, we are definitely looking at that. And we'll be able to share with you further as we get into the very detailed parts of design on the mechanical, electrical, plumbing of how we were able to do that. It's not forgotten, I can assure you though.
Well, maybe you know the SFPUC building uses recycled water, and it requires filtering, it requires water storage, and I don't see any place in the design for that kind of activity. It can be done. The PUC even has it in their main building downtown. And maybe you should be more concerned about what's happening with the human use of fresh water, which is starving the San Francisco Bay and Delta, and a very important estuary where there used to be lots of delta smelt, but now hardly any to count. Even the headwaters are suffering for the sharply declining populations of salmon, for example. So we can't rely on the fresh water being available forever as in the past. We are in a mega drought, and I don't want UCSF to be complicit with the CSFPUC, which sued the State Water Board to prevent increasing freshwater flows to improve the health of the San Francisco Bay and estuary.
Well, certainly, absolutely, totally agree with your concerns. We need to get further into the project about how we can actually execute on exactly the concerns that you have. But I can assure you that in terms of our planning, we have every intention to minimize our impact on the environment.
Thank you, Stuart. I see the next hand up is Susan.
Yes, just a question on the diagrams. It looked from the picture that you're seriously considering the 6 to 11 foot overhang in front of the building that goes over the sidewalk. Could you comment on what your thinking is about that? And if so, just clarify whether you would need city approval to go over the sidewalk.
Comina and Kevin, I think, can respond to this.
I can take the question on the projection. It's within the EIR, we have a 4-foot projection over the property line. I believe that's within the San Francisco city guidelines. And so we're not projecting beyond the requirements for the city at this point in time. And we are still studying variations of that theme to be considered.
Okay, so I just remembered something in the EI talking about 6 to 11 feet. So just trying to reconcile those things.
Yes, it will be within within 4 feet of the projection of the city boundary line.
And this is Kevin Beauchamp with Campus Planning. To the extent that anything in the public right-of-way requires approval by the city, we'll be working with our city colleagues on that in the planning department once we have a clearer sense on exactly what might be needed.
Great. Thank you, Kevin. All right, I don't see any other hands raised at the moment, but while we wait for other people to raise their hand, Val, do you mind going back a few slides to some of the renderings? I had a couple neighbors message me about the directions that they were facing. So maybe Carly, could I put you on the spot to walk us quickly through which directions we're viewing those from?
Yes, let's go back to the slides in question and we can hopefully not confuse people with where you're standing versus where you're looking.
Yeah. Perfect. Do you want to just start at the top and then we'll just briefly go through them? And then James, I see your hands raised. So once we get through this, I'll call on you.
All right, so this is a view from, if you're floating above Hillway Avenue, you're looking south at the site. And the next one. So here you're looking west at the edge of campus. Here you're looking east in front of Moffett and Long Annex. Across the street, that was Parnassus right in front of you. Here we're looking south again, standing on the opposite side of Parnassus. And here we're looking to the west.
Great. Thank you, Carly. I think that was the last one, right?
Great.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, Carly. James, please ask your question. Oh, it looks like you're still on mute.
There we go.
There.
Am I working? Okay.
There
thank
you are.
I am a neighbor. I am on Carl Street, and I had looked at the EIR, and there is let me say more accurate, in my opinion, and I'll show you right here. This is a simulation. Carly mentioned long-term views and then pedestrian views, and here's a middle term, view from Carl and or from Arguello and Lincoln. Carl's a block away, and you can see the difference. Perhaps we could see that one all on the big screen. So I have concerns that this building is too big. The view from Willard and Parnassus shows, looking west, as Carly said, shows how much this building looms. And it does indeed loom over Parnassus, and I'm down the Hillway. It looms down on Carl Street. Since I have 20 seconds left, let me just say, and where are all these new employees and patients going to park? Because right now they're parking in Golden Gate Park and on Carl Street. So there's issues. And then why is this stuff buried? Why aren't we getting the proper upfront stuff? Thank you.
Thank you, James. I'm not sure if there is anyone who wants to respond to the question about employee parking. I'll add that we've heard that concern throughout the engagement process. And as Francesca noted, that is a large part of our agreement with the city of San Francisco, is emphasizing our role as a transit first campus and encouraging our employees and staff to take public transit or utilize other modes of transit than single occupancy vehicles. And we are making a significant contribution to SFMTA to help bolster those transit lines that serve Parnassus Heights. I don't know if anybody else wants to jump in there and address anything else that James raised.
Sure.
Regarding transit, I would also add that we are working with the SFMTA to reconfigure the Anjuda Muni stop at Irving Street to make it possible to accommodate 3-car Anjuda trains. Right now, it only accommodates 2-car trains. So our goal is to work in partnership with the city to try to improve Muni service serving the campus so that we can further embrace the transit first philosophy of the city.
Thanks, Kevin. All right, Felix, I see your hand is raised.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, so in the bird's eye view of the map you guys showed, it did not show that it was crossing over, the building was crossing over to the other side of the forest like it did before when we all raised our objections. So again, this time there's a map showing what the plan is, and then further on down, we go and discover that that has been changed. Do you see what I'm saying? Like you showed that the bird's eye view of the map, the aerial map you showed, and the building was staying where it's supposed to be, and the map showed that the building was not crossing over the what you call medical way. But then in actuality, it does. Can you clarify?
Hi, Felix. I can help clarify that. Abby, it might be helpful to bring up the map slide. So Felix, what you're seeing here is a very abstract drawing of the site. So we do not go all the way over Medical Center Way and touch Montesutro. We are still staying away from Montesutro and not impeding, any part of the mountain with the building edge there. So we are still staying to the same outline as you should see in the EIR. We are still with that same building form.
So there's no part of this building that is going to cross Medical Way?
There are parts of it that are slightly over Medical Center Way, but they're not fully crossing and fully, if you remember the site that used to be square, that this community that we discussed in past community meetings, it is not that site. It is still the same angled building outline as what you've probably seen last time.
Okay, so there's been a meaningful change in how this new signature looks, because the problem we had was basically that it crossed Medical Center Way into the Parnassus Heights neighborhood, And then that basically encroached on the sunlight and everything else, to name a few things of that whole neighborhood. And our objection was, if you can build a hospital here without doing that, and the retort to that was that you are like, well, you guys have to move patients somewhere else as a stopgap measure in order to be able to build a new hospital. And that was the reason why you guys had to extend the building beyond Medical Way, which is what we raised that objection for, because it will markedly affect the life of the people that are living in the neighborhood. And so, so are we in agreement that this is now not the case?
I think Felix might be helpful to have a UCSF member answer this question for you. Can I?
Yeah.
Thanks, Stuart.
Sure, Carly. So I'm sorry, I'm trying to get back on video, but I can't. So I appreciate it again. Thank you for the question. And if I understand your question, we are no longer going over Medical Center Way and into Mount Sutro. So we are staying away from Mount Sutro. As Carly said, we might go on the fringe of the west side of Medical Center Way, but not even all the way over Medical Center Way in any way. So there won't be any tunnel effect there on Medical Center Way. And certainly, to be totally specific, we are not going into Mount Sutro.
Okay, yeah, because even because Mount Sutro is a little bit broad of a term, there are people that live on Edgewood and Farnsworth, and some people's house butt into that pathway. And as because we live there, we noticed that there's now been closures there, that path is closed, which tells me that it's the foresight of a building coming up, which was our primary objection. So that path has been closed for pedestrians to walk on. And so I just to be clear, you guys are building this for the community, not for yourselves. And we have to live there every day. And so we do not want to have a building that is basically going to shadow all the places that we live. The patients that are going to this hospital, they don't live there. And so when we talk about this, and this is our lifestyle, and this is where we've lived, and especially after COVID, green space is very, very valuable.
Yes.
And so I see no reason why any green space whatsoever should be taken off the chessboard at this point. None. And so, as far as I'm concerned, I think everybody in the neighborhood is with me on this, that we will fight anything that crosses over Medical Center Way, because we do not want that to happen, and we have a zero tolerance for it, and we don't see the justification for it either.
Felix, thank you. And Stuart, thank you for jumping in. I want to add one point of clarification that the work that we're doing right now of why Farnsworth Trail that you noted off of Edgewood Avenue is closed is related to the Mount Sutro Vegetation Management Plan. So it's not in advance of any new hospital work. It's part of the multi-year investment that we're making to revitalize the health of Mount Sutro by removing dead and dying trees. It just so happens to be in that area of the reserve right now, but that it has nothing to do with upcoming new hospital work.
Okay, well, if there's no development, then we're all on purpose, and I'm happy that this is recorded so that, you know, we can go back and look at the tape. So I just don't, it'll be a crying shame if we're taking any green space anywhere in San Francisco, especially one like this one. And so that's my main objection, and other people can go ahead and object with what they want, but this is my main objection. And that's it for me. Thanks for answering.
Yeah, thank you, Felix. Thank you for raising your concern. So I had a note from Francis that someone sent in a question to her via the chat. Francis, do you mind sharing that for the group?
Yeah, sure. This is from Cynthia Travis, and Cynthia made a comment about why has the design remained at about 300 feet tall despite community requests to reduce the height. The surrounding community zoning is 40 feet.
I don't know, Carly, do you want to talk to any of that, or?
Maybe I can talk to that, Stuart.
Okay,
the building is, I think the current, we came back to you last October with the height of the building to being within the requirements for the ER, which is 294. In order to build the hospital and the technical requirements, the floor-to-floor heights need to be of a certain dimension, and this sets the top line of the building at 294, and everything below that point is focused on building a hospital. There are a couple of floors below ground, but we are limited as to how far we can building below ground to a particular depth. So within the framework of all the constraints of Medical Center Way, the maximum 294 and the requirements for the floor-to-floor heights and building below ground, what we have is the best opportunity to build the hospital to achieve the requirements that are set forth.
Great. Oh, sorry, did I hear someone else was about to jump in? Or if not, I can move on to the next question. Okay, Francis, I know you have another chat question. Will you read that out loud and direct it to the appropriate individual?
This is from Logan Craig regarding 3 car trains on the Enduta. Will you be updating all stops? Can DeBose handle more than 2 cars? And I'd like to direct that to Kevin Beauchamp.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we are working with the SFMTA on the stop immediately adjacent to UCSF on Irving Street. But the larger effort is part of the overall SFMTA initiative. And our understanding is that they're working on other stops along the route, including DeBose and elsewhere, so that the whole plan can come together.
Great, thank you, Kevin. All right, Francis, I take it you don't have any other chat questions. I don't see any other hands raised at the moment, but maybe I'll give people another minute or 2 to raise their hands in case anything comes up. Or also to frantically wave me down from your screen in case I'm missing it. Oh, Susan, I see your hands up, please.
A follow-up question. You said a couple times that you expect the final EIR to go to the regents in the spring. And so I guess I'm just wondering, is that spring March? Is that spring June? It's because it seems to me we're almost at spring. So I'm just trying to clarify what regents meeting you're aiming for.
Diane or Kevin, could I hand that one to you?
Yeah, it's still, it's very fluid. It won't be March. March is coming up very soon. So it will probably be later in the spring. Susan, I'm sorry, I don't have a more definitive answer than that.
So is this a regular meeting or it'll be one of their health meetings? I mean, because the health focus ones are like every other month kind of thing, right?
That's right. I believe it will be at one of their regular meetings.
Great. Thank you, Diane. And I also wanted to note that Carly gave me a great suggestion to remind everyone that Experience Parnassus is going to be a fantastic opportunity to see the hospital, the idea of it in person through augmented and virtual reality. And that can help give you a greater sense of what the space of it will be, how it will look and feel, and what that interaction will be like. All right, I don't see any other hands raised at the moment. So why don't we go through to next steps? Thanks everyone for joining us tonight. Val, you go to the next slide. All right, so upcoming for 2022, we wanted to give you a preview of what some of the topics that we anticipate coming up, both for the new hospital and also for the comprehensive Parnassus Heights plan. So for one, the Parnassus experience is happening this month, or this upcoming month, I should say. And so we encourage you to attend, come, participate, interact with the space. It's at Faculty Alumni House on the western side of campus. And then we'll be talking a little bit about landscaping. As Carly mentioned, there were some changes there, so we'll be updating you all as progress is made in developing that. Similarly, with the transportation and circulation and construction activities, we will be sharing all of those at our regularly scheduled quarterly construction meetings. So as we start to prepare the site, giving everyone a heads up as to what that work will look like, what potential impacts could be seen from that, so that everyone has a heads up well in advance of any work. And then on the comprehensive Parnassus Heights plan, as Francesca shared, we will be releasing a report on the memorandum of understanding with the city of San Francisco every year. So this was a snippet of what's going to come in the March release of the report, which we will also share out through our email listserv and on our website, and make sure it's widely distributed so that everybody can have an opportunity to read it and follow along throughout the coming years. And then similarly, as some of you know, part of the comprehensive Parnassus Heights plan includes the research and academic building, which is on the opposite end of campus from the new hospital. That work is the initial process of it is starting now. And so we'll be having community meetings around the design and construction of that, probably starting in the summer or fall, but we'll be sending out notices through the postcards and email listservs that you all are accustomed to receiving. Val, will you go to the next slide? All right, again, our meeting information will be shared on the CPHP website, and notices will be sent out via the listserv for upcoming meetings. Here's the information to sign up for our email list, but all meeting attendees will be added to our email list as well, too, for those of you who are new tonight. And I think that is the last slide. Val, will you go to the next one? Right, that's it. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. We really appreciate you taking the time and hope to see you in person at Experience Parnassus.